The Australian Sports Commission has apologised to athletes who say they were mistreated during their time as gymnasts at the AIS. A recent damning report found evidence of bullying, harassment and a focus on the, quote, ideal body for young female gymnasts. But gymnastics is not the only sport with a focus on weight management.
In fact, many high-performance athletes in various sports depend on specific eating and nutritional plans in order to achieve their best. Well, to explain the line between performance and obsessive dieting, we're now joined by Dr. Beth Shelton, the National Director of the National Eating Disorder Collaboration and psychologist. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Beth. Now, most of us, we approach eating, in our own sort of way. Some of us have, penchants for burgers, myself included, I suppose. But I suppose when you talk about high-performance athletes, that's a whole different level of thinking about nutrition and dieting, isn't it? Explain to us, where does eating and the idea of eating fall into the role, or what role it plays in high-performance athletes' lives?
Yeah, I guess, Fazia, that for most of us, when we're eating for appetite, we're eating to some degree for nutrition, and we're eating hopefully for pleasure. And in that, we're also thinking about, we're affected by body ideals in our culture, and we're affected by quite a lot of conflicting ideas around what we should and shouldn't eat. So we're all managing that. If you're a high-performance athlete, you're also needing to eat for optimised nutrition to meet certain goals in your sport. So it's a highly specific kind of eating, which is strongly linked to your sense of what you're going to achieve. So there's a lot at stake in your eating, which is slightly different. And you also might have quite a strong sense of an ideal physique for your sport as well, which puts another set of understandings and considerations into what you need to be doing. So it puts a lot of focus on the kinds of eating that an athlete is doing, and also a lot of importance on the kind of advice they get in relation to how to do that.
Now, we know that high-performance athletes, they're very focused. Many of them are obsessive, shall we say, when it comes to trying to achieve their particular target. I know that you work with AIS athletes. What are you hearing from them? Are they struggling to try to focus that obsession on the sport rather than the eating?
Well, I think it can be pretty confusing. When you have a very strong achievement orientation, and you're working very hard at something. It's like being in a tunnel, isn't it? It's like an achievement tunnel. And everything in that tunnel is extremely important to you. And one of those factors is food. And yeah, as you say, Fazia, for athletes, some of the really great characteristics that athletes have of achievement orientation, perfectionism, self-discipline, unfortunately, if they're turned to over-control and rigidity around food, can be very much red flags for a number of problems, including low energy availability, where the body simply isn't getting enough food to do the hard jobs that athletes need to do, and also disordered eating and eating disorders. And all of those outcomes will mean the athlete isn't achieving what they want to achieve, and they have very serious physiological and psychological long-term and short-term effects, including in the case of eating disorders, life-threatening. So athletes need to be really careful around how they use their focus when it comes to food and eating. And they need really good advice around that from medical, dietetic and psychological help, if they're at that high performance level, to stay safe.
But it's not just the athletes themselves that are focused on weight management as well. Certain sports also depends on the sort of weight that an athlete would have. I'm thinking of gymnastics, of course, running, boxing, of course. You've got the heavyweight, you've got the lightweight as well. That would certainly make a particular athlete very obsessed over their eating, over nutrition, over that number on the weighing scales as well. So what do you say to athletes to try to ensure that they don't become obsessed, and it doesn't become a body image issue?
It is always a body image issue. It's a body image issue for everyone in our culture, unfortunately. But that it doesn't become an obsessive and difficult and disabling body image issue. Especially in aesthetically judged sports and gravitational sports and weight class sports, those athletes do experience higher incidence of eating disorders and disordered eating. So we know they need more help. It's just the same as with other athletes. So people need to have a carefully judged diet and intake, which is carefully matched to the actual demands of what they need to be doing. Thinner and more muscular isn't always the answer, and that's true for high performance athletes. It's also true for recreational exercises. What works is to feed your body for what it is that you need to do, and to do that within a positive body image kind of context, not in a punitive or a derogatory or a mean kind of way at all, in a kind of nurturing and a safe environment. That's what athletes need.
Let's talk about, you know, the end of the career for a high performance athlete. When the training, you know, the rigorous training is no longer there, you'd have to change your eating patterns, of course, but you still have that obsessive trait, that perfectionist trait that doesn't leave you, I suppose. What advice would you give someone who may be facing the end of their athletic career, in that transitioning to perhaps, you know, civilian life?
Yeah. So the first thing is about life meaning and connection and the big issues. When you're in the achievement tunnel, you tend to put all of your self-esteem and connection sort of eggs in the same basket, which is the achievement of that highly focused goal. When you come out of that achievement tunnel, you're in a big unwieldy world where you need to sort of have self-esteem and connection eggs, more of them in different places. And in terms of your eating, that will mean reducing the rigidity and the over-control that you might have been exercising in order to manage some of your dietary requirements of your sport. So you need to eat flexibly and spontaneously. You need to eat for connection, as we all do, and just really don't go for the over-control and the rigidity, because that's not the way to eat. It's to allow yourself to enjoy food and be part of life and kind of re-emerge from I guess, that extreme high-focus tunnel.
All very good advice. Dr. Beth Shelton, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Dr. Beth Shelton, their psychologist and director of National Eating Disorder Collaboration.
Thanks, Fazia.
And if this story has raised any issues for you, you can always get help by calling the Butterfly Foundation helpline on 1-800-33-4673.